Thanks for listening to Baxie's Musical Podcast. If you like what you hear today, be sure to follow it, rate it, like it, share it aggressively with all of your friends. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok for regular updates. Today's episode is brought to you by Metro Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram at Chicopee. Be sure to check out their state-of-the-art dealership next to BJ's and Big Y on Memorial Drive, or check out MetroJeep.com and drive home in your new Metro Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram today.
It's Baxie's Musical Podcast.
Sometimes the best art isn't always the stuff that reflects what everybody else is doing. Sometimes the most gripping stuff in the world isn't really about you. Instead, it's about the person making it, the ones who are digging down deep into the darkest parts of their soul, not for you, but as a means to cope with what they're experiencing in the moment. Those moments often change who we are and mold our perceptions of things. Sometimes the most compelling stuff comes from the raw and often painful heartache that people deal with every single day. And sometimes there are circumstances that lead up to those things, and those circumstances are typically unique and individualistic, just like the way we cope in those situations. We all have troubled times and we all deal with pain in different ways. But for some, like my guest today, the only way to get through tough times is to purge those emotions and confront them head on, to ask questions of ourselves and to self-reflect. That usually requires a certain level of vulnerability that often separates the common everyday songwriter from a true artist. And if people can connect to those strong emotions, great. But it might not always be the primary objective. For the last 34 years, Eef Barzelay has been the singer and primary songwriter for the band Clem Snide. Since 1991, Clem Snide has released 10 albums. The newest one, Hey Smokey, will be released nationally on May 2nd, even though it's been available to fans at his live show since last October. The record is a stunning document of who Eef Barzelay is and how he attempts to put his life back into perspective, despite self-doubt and a troubled faith. But it does become more complex than that because at the same time, there are flashes of optimism and endurance, and it is stunning. And maybe that's one of the reasons why some have called Eef Barzelay one of the most underappreciated songwriters of his generation. I happen to agree with that. Whether you're listening to the new record with songs like At Your Command, Smokey, or Air Show Disaster, or whether you're listening to some of his earlier work on albums like Forever Just Beyond, The Ghost of Freedom, The Meat of Life, or any of his others, Eef Barzelay is something very special. Clem Snide is coming to the Warehouse in Somerville, Mass. On April 10th, and also to ConnArtists in Southbury, Connecticut on April 11th. To talk about all this stuff and what got him to this point is my guest today, Eef Barzelay, from Clem Snide on Baxie's Musical Podcast. So how was the Waffle House?
Yeah, wonderful.
It is hard to argue with the All-Star Special. There's no doubt about it.
Waffle House is my that's my safe place. Can you tell I'm in the bathroom? I'm sitting on the sitting on the toilet. But
Well,
I'm not doing anything inappropriate. You know what I'm
it's
saying?
you know what? It's really okay. And if you had to, I can turn my head if I have to.
That's right.
I can hide for a little bit.
If I seem like I'm concentrating extra hard, don't be dismayed. Don't be dismayed. But yeah, they're doing whatever. Yeah, they're doing like landscape. I'm staying at my friend's house, and there's like a bunch of landscaping going on outside. So just trying to find a good spot for us.
Well, you picked a good one. The acoustics are perfect.
Nice.
As we were talking about before, I've been listening to the new record and like many of your records, I find myself getting really emotionally connected to some of these songs, and I can't always say why. I mean, sometimes it's the lyrics, sometimes it's not. I was telling you that that Meat of Life is a song that I'm not even sure I even understand the lyrics, and that's not even important, but it connects. Are you ever surprised by what songs connect to people and which ones don't?
I mean, the whole process is kind of mysterious to me. I think, like, as I've over the years, I've tried to kind of not, hold on loosely. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
Not yeah, not it's not I'm not even that interested in my own thoughts and feelings about it. I think I work very just like intuitively. I don't ever really know what I'm doing. I don't have some kind of, secret agenda or some message necessarily that I'm trying to. Yeah, it's more kind of, yeah, it's open to interpretation always,
right. So
and
so you're not sitting there with a guitar saying, "Oh, this one's gonna really get them."
I mean, sometimes I can, yeah, sometimes something just feels like the really great, the best stuff comes. Yeah, like I've heard other songwriters say this, a bit cliche, but it just comes to you. You don't even know where it comes from. You don't even really plan on writing it, and it just shows up. And you don't even songs that I've written, years later, I'm like, oh, maybe that's what it was about. I don't even, yeah, I'm just a vessel. I just try to stay open to
Well,
things.
well, it's interesting because even stuff that you haven't written, like for example, you released the second Smothered and Covered album last year, the version you did of In the Airplane Over the Sea by Neutral Milk Hotel. I mean, I've heard that album a million times, and it's not even your song, and yet for whatever reason, when you sing it, it just hits differently. And I don't know how the hell you do it. I mean, I don't know if it's a matter of a different kind of intimacy or a different kind of tenderness you bring to it, but it's for whatever reason, it's like, man, you just it hurts in a good way.
It hurts. Well, I mean, it's wonderful to hear you say that. That's I mean, yeah, it's kind of the whole point, I suppose, just to get that sort of those feelings, those good kind of deep feelings, I think is what I'm looking for.
Before we get into the real specifics of the new record, I've noticed that in a lot of interviews that you've done, it seems like there's very often a discussion of faith and God, and your background as it relates to that is pretty interesting. I mean, you were born in Israel. Your family was from Israel. They're Holocaust survivors, eventually moving to the United States. And like many people who have been through that experience and other kinds of experience, war and real tragic stuff in their lives, there is sometimes a rejection of faith in a way. Can
Yeah.
you explain that to me and how that affected you growing up as a kid?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, my grandparents were they went to Israel when they were in their early 20s, so they sort of escaped the camps as it were, but they left behind. They never saw their parents and their brothers, and they just like sort of abandoned. So I think they had a much anyway, so they kind of converted their Judaism into Zionism, and they were communists too. So there was like a real rejection of God, I suppose, in exchange for this, yeah, this more the Israeli identity. So that my parents grew up in that sort of atmosphere, and but then they rejected their Zionism in a way too because they moved here. So anyway, which is all to say, I grew up in suburban New Jersey in the 1980s with like nothing, no religion, no sense of anything. So I think which in a way is very Jewish, I think, too, to just be sort of not sure, very questioning. So I think my own personal, yeah, my background has informed. I don't know. Yeah, I felt just a kind of emptiness and just trying to figure it out for myself.
It's interesting at some point along the way in your writing, you begin writing about faith and God, and not in a way that rejects it, but almost in a way that seems to reject the rejection of it. Was there a moment where things changed for you, and what led to you starting to ask questions about that kind of stuff?
I mean, yeah, I had, when I turned 40, which was whatever, some years ago, um, like my life kind of bottomed out.
Mm.
I was I'd been doing Clem Snide for 10, 12 years, and it was just like a parade of heartache, and I was just getting sort of chewed up and spit out by the industry. And by 2010, 2011, it just everything just, yeah, like I lost my house and I went into bankruptcy. I had a wife and two small kids. I didn't know what I was going to do exactly. So it was kind of a dark time, kind of a dark night of the soul. And it was around that same time, I think, that I had a kind of, I don't know, like a spiritual awakening, or I just couldn't, like life was just coming at me so hard, and I was just so devastated by it all, that I just started hearing more like spiritual sort of messages, and they spoke to me, and that just helped me. Yeah, it just helped me get through that period, to kind of just surrender. It's really just like surrendering, at some point you just like, life just kind of brings you to your knees, and
Yeah.
so you just start praying. You got nothing else you can really do. So, and then once I did that, yeah, like I found a lot of inspiration. I've reached out to people, I connected more with people, I wrote songs for people, and miracles. I mean, miracles started coming too. So, so I guess, yeah, that kind of informs what I'm trying to do now, is just that sort of celebration of that,
On,
whatever that is.
on the new album, Oh Smokey, obviously, a lot of these songs that you've written, not just on this record, but in other ones too, they're songs that are coming from real pain and real struggle. But then, you reach towards this, this shaken or newfound faith, for help to pull you through those tough times. Particularly in a song like "At Your Command," which I think is maybe one of the best songs in the whole record. I mean, there's clearly a comfort that you're drawing out of that relationship with God, even if you're not fully comfortable with what that all means. There's a connection that you have made in that song, and it's a breathtaking song. I mean, to me, there's no other way to put it. I mean, is that an accurate depiction of what that song is all about, and how that kind of trickles out to the rest of the record?
Yeah, I like. I mean, more and more, I look at songs as like a little, yeah, like a little prayer. I have no religious like inclinations or background or anything. So yeah, in a way, I think I just, it's fun to just do it yourself. I think God appreciates that. And yeah, that song, I love the idea, of God, just meet me half the way, just meet me in the middle somewhere. And I use God. I like the word God, but God, the word is it's just a word. I don't. I mean, to me, God is just, yeah, it's just like the ultimate reality, or God is just like a prayer. To me, to pray is just to be completely honest with yourself. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah,
when you're kind of bullshitting yourself. So when you lie to yourself, you're lying to God. Like you and God are the same thing. That's my spiritual revelation, is that there's no separation between me and God.
right.
I mean, when we speak, words immediately make things separate. So you say God, it becomes like this separate thing, but it's just life. I mean, it's just like being aware and being alive. I don't, yeah, I get it. It's hard for me to talk about these things. I don't have theology.
And not
So
just because you're in the bathroom.
it's my sacred place. It's the most important room of the
It
house. Come on,
is.
let's
No,
be
no,
honest.
no
Let's be
doubt.
honest.
But I mean, we all go through different struggles in our lives, and you and I actually share some commonalities in some of that. But in order to kind of take those moments and turn it into something that you're able to verbalize, it does require a certain level of vulnerability from you, and even a certain level of vulnerability to rely on some level of faith. But I think what's interesting is that these are not just sad songs. There is this undercurrent of hope that seems to be woven in and out of these songs. It's not just a whole lot of woe is me, but it's also like I'm reaching out to find some life raft, some life preserver, and there is some hopefulness in that as you're singing that way. Is there an intentional, deliberate effort to do that so that it's not just all "woe is me" songs?
Um, I mean, I'm not sure how to answer. Yeah, I think, I mean, a song, like a good song, I think, for me, a good song always is like is somewhere between things. It's never like, if something is very clear, then it's like propaganda. You know what I'm saying? It's, to me, like art is always like somewhere just on the edge of what we know, or just beyond, like, so yeah, emotionally too. Like I never, I mean, I've written some straight up sad songs. It's like a spectrum, but yeah, obviously, like any story, there is, I think like everything is a kind of redemption. Like you can look at music. All right, this was my recent thoughts. I think like if you look at a song, like a song kind of mirrors, like what's the point of every song? You know what I'm saying? Every
Yes,
song or every piece of music always at the end, I mean, unless it's some crazy avant-garde shit, but for the most part, everything just returns back home. You know what I mean?
sure.
You start on the whatever the one chord or wherever you're starting. You know, the key you're in, and you go through all the chords like a journey, and it's tension. You build up tension. You go to that 5 chord, and then the 5 chord, releases to the back to the one chord. Yeah, like every story, every art in some sense is a kind of like redemption in that way. So I think that implies like
Yeah.
hopefulness.
So when you're writing music or attempting to get a song out of you, is it a matter of getting the melody of it out first, or is there like a thought and intention that comes out first, and then you write around it, or is it just is it different every time?
Yeah, there's no real method. Sometimes I'll have all the words or a lot of the words, and then I just start singing them. And other times I'll just have some melodic thing, and I'll just find some words that it wants to enter into. And the whole process is mysterious. I mean, really, it's more like I get that feeling. It's like a kind of a tickle, and I feel like I have something good, and then I'll just play it over and over, kind of obsess over it for a few days. And then, like more often than not, ideas don't really go anywhere. I mean, I'd say like most of my songs just end up in the gutter somewhere, but occasionally one or two will sort of come together and be something that lives.
There are a couple singles out now that are not part of the new album, Sea Legs and What Moves the Ocean. Tell me a little bit about those two songs, and did they just not make did they not make the cut for the last album, or is that looking for something down the road?
Yeah, no, they well, the sea legs, right, yeah, right during COVID, I was neighbors with Bill Reynolds, who played on the Forever Just Beyond record. Uh, he was in the Band of Horses, bass player. Bill, wonderful guy. We were neighbors in Nashville, and the COVID hit, and so I just kind of loosely suggested maybe trying to make a record or just doing some recording for fun mostly. So we got together and we made an EP with a lot of the same people that played on that record, including a certain Scott Avett and the guy that mixed it, Jason, also. Anyway, so we made this EP, and but it didn't come out good. I mean, only Sea Legs was the only song that kind of survived. So I just had it sitting around for years, and I just thought, well, I might as well just put it out. But yeah, that's Scott Avett singing the background on that.
You,
And then that other one, I don't know. Yeah, I don't even know where that song came from. I just had that song and I liked it, so I thought the two kind of went well together.
you mentioned Scott Avett. You've actually done quite a lot of collaboration with him over the years, and apparently he was a big fan before you even had a chance to meet. Tell me how the relationship started and about that collaboration with him.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. I don't know when it was, like 2015, 2016, right around then. I had like a big fan in outside of Milwaukee sent me a clip that he had filmed, I think, at an Avett Brothers concert of Scott Avett covering a Clem Snide song for the encore, just coming out by himself, singing like a pretty obscure Clem Snide, and I was like, whoa, I had no idea. And then he was in some interview where he was talking about Clem Snide. Anyway, that led me to the understanding that Scott Avett was a big fan. And I didn't have a whole lot going on back then, so I just reached out to him, and we started talking, and we started sending just ideas back and forth. It was all very kind of loose, and then somehow I cajoled him into producing a record and making a record together, and he said yes. He agreed. It was really a miracle. I was talking before about like miracles, how I kind of depend on them. That was just, he came out of nowhere like an angel, just descended and brought me back. I mean, I'm back in the game. Clem Snide sort of resurrected.
Yeah, because at the time, Clem Snide, I mean, you pretty much had put that to rest and were just performing as yourself, but he helped you in deciding to kind of reform the brand a little bit?
I mean, it was, we didn't know what to call the record. It was his idea to just call it a Clem Snide record. And it made sense, because Clem Snide was always really more of like a spirit than a specific group of people. I mean, people came and went, but it was always just, at its best, it was just like good friends just playing music together for fun. And I couldn't really keep it as like a functioning business. I couldn't fire myself. That's my joke. I had to fire everyone else. But, so yeah, so to make it just financially viable for me, I had to kind of just make it like a solo operation. But I definitely need some help if I'm going to make a proper record. I can't really make like a real record just by myself. I think I need someone to help me, please.
And a Scott A that just stepped right in at the right time.
Oh, I mean, he just took care of everything. Yeah, he just, paid for the whole thing and put it out with his label there. I mean, it was wonderful. Yeah.
So musically speaking, when you talk about Clem Snide and then Eef Barzelay, I mean, where musically does one end and one begin, or is there any distinction between the two for you?
I don't know. I don't really make a distinction. I put some records out, in the 2000s, did a couple records just as Eef Barzelay. Because I thought then that the band was pretty much over, and I kind of wanted to distance myself from the name, but the name just keeps coming back, and I guess, yeah, ultimately more people are aware of Clem Snide than Eef Barzelay, so it just makes it easier just to be Clem Snide, I guess. But I don't love that name. I wish I chose it when I was 19 years old. I was reading William Burroughs. I thought I was cool, whatever. I didn't even think that I'd be sort of burdened with it for 30 years. But it's fine. It serves its purpose.
I've read enough Burroughs in college to kind of recall that, if I'm not mistaken, Clem Snide was a character who was basically an asshole.
That was the joke. That's why we chose the name. We thought it was funny. There's a tape. I can't read William Burroughs. It's tough to get through, but
It's real hard.
there's but if you listen to him performing his stuff, it's really funny. He's kind of yeah, he's got a great voice. So one of the tapes we had back then just opened with the name's Clem Snide. I'm a private asshole. So we're like, yeah, we're private assholes. Again, I was 19, all right, at
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah,
But,
and every 50-year-old man loves having decisions from 19 keep coming back to haunt them over and over again.
yes, indeed.
I know a lot of people have asked you about this one song, and I find it really interesting. Talking about Roger Ebert, and the song allegedly is about the very last words he spoke when before he died, and that song, again, it really resonates with people, and especially with how he saw the world in his final moments. Tell me a little bit about that song, and what that meant to you as you're writing this song, and ultimately how it lands with other people.
Yeah, no, I mean, that song is definitely kind of one of the special ones, I'd say. I mean, it's true. I tell the story how I came upon it. I think it just popped up on my Yahoo, news, just random, like the internet knows, what I'm interested in. But it was an interview with his wife Chaz, like soon after he had passed, with GQ. I think it was for GQ magazine. I think you can still find it online, but I just read the article, and I was just so touched by it. And the words in the song are, a lot of them are just taken from his words, but he apparently, according to Chaz, towards the very end of his life, was right. He couldn't speak, so he'd write her these notes, and he kept saying it's all an elaborate hoax. He was, and I was starting to kind of see through the veil, towards the end there, and yeah, it had a kind of almost transcendent. She described, yeah, he looked young, he looked super very peaceful when he passed. It was just a beautiful moment. So it was really just about that, just almost conversational. I like that. Did these were Roger Ebert's, like we're just mentioning it to someone at like a dinner party or something. I like the spirit of it like that.
For a lot of songwriters, when they write songs that have some sort of personal element to them, a lot of songwriters are willing to go to a certain level, but then not cross a certain threshold, like a delicate threshold. Like there's a certain. I mean, we all have walls that we build up around ourselves, but from an artist's standpoint, sometimes you go beyond that. When you're writing music or writing lyrics or whatever it may be musically, do you find that you impose limits on yourself, or do you just let the song kind of let yourself be vulnerable and open?
Yeah, no, that's a good. I like that question about. I was just talking to somebody about this. I mean, I think if you're, yeah, that whatever you're talking about, that boundary, that wall, and that people put up, like it's just what's on the other side of that wall that you'll find your inspiration. That's where all the good stuff is. You know what I'm saying? It's the stuff you don't know, the stuff you're afraid of, the stuff you're embarrassed by. And you can, like, yeah, you can sing, you can be whoever you want in a song. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be like some sort of embarrassing confession that you do publicly, I think, but just that feeling, you have to tap into those feelings. And then you know what I'm saying? But yeah,
Yeah.
that's I mean, that's where the good shit is, right? That's where you'll find it.
But you've been doing it for an awful long period of time now. Because it was it 1991. I think you really started. I mean, it's a long damn time. Has it gotten easier or more difficult as you've gotten older to
Yeah.
get to that point, to be able to reach in and grab that stuff out of you?
Yeah, I don't easier. I think when I was younger, like when I first started writing those songs that made it onto the first, few Clem Snide records, like that period was, yeah, like a culmination of that. I was in my 20s and I was just like full of this like desperate kind of lustful heat. And I wrote more. It was more like this burning desire to get it out, this more sort of desperation. um and now it's not, yeah, it doesn't feel the same way, but yeah, but in a way it is easier now. I'm not even sure. It's easier for me to write songs than not to write songs. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I just do it. It's like a compulsion. And I don't even, like, at this point, I don't, yeah, it doesn't even, like, it doesn't really matter. Like, I've been around for so long, and yeah, like I said, I've been chewed up and spit out by the business, that I just, yeah, if anything, the easier part of it now is that I really just don't care that much, what people think of it, or how it's perceived, or if it's going to be successful or not. Like, I struggled with all that for, like others, I suppose, for many years. Now I'm just like, just, and
Well,
just it comes, just let it
yeah.
be what it is,
Well, that's kind of why I brought it up, because I think there's something to be said about the 10,000 hours of work, and then all of a sudden it becomes more more natural. But on the other hand, I think when a man reaches 50 or more, there's a certain part of them that says, I don't really give a shit anymore, and
Nice.
it's a pretty
Nice.
valuable lesson to learn at 50, that the things that you worried about when you were 20, or the things you were embarrassed about, like now, like, okay, well, I've been through all
Yeah.
that. What else can you throw at me?
I mean, yeah, I feel more, yeah, I feel like I'm closer to people, closer to my own like humanity, I guess. But yeah, writing songs is, I mean, I remember hearing like Bobby Bear Jr. talking about his father, his Bobby Bear Senior,
Hmm.
uh, and he's like, it's kind of like fishing. It's like going fishing. You just cast your line out there, and some days you catch stuff, other days you don't, or sometimes you don't catch anything. So it's more, yeah, it's more like a lot of just waiting and driving. It's song. I can write a song in 5 minutes. If it's if it's there. It's not like I have to sit in some writing room and write for hours on end. There's not a lot of effort involved. It's more just like something just kind of pops in your mind, and you got to add it. Oh, I got to come up with another verse here. It's not going to take that long. Either it's there or it isn't, in some sense. So
So I mentioned a couple of your songs that moved me over the years. What does it for you? I mean, what do you listen to that touches you emotionally or spiritually?
mm, I mean, I don't. I've become like less and less of like a fan of music than I was, definitely much more. a fan when I was younger. Now I appreciate like silence as much as anything, you know. I feel like I've heard so much music and I've seen so many movies and I've heard so much content, you know. I really I don't need it. I drive in silence a lot, you know. I just roll the window down a little bit. But I like, you know, I like all the good music. I've been listening to like lately I've had Marvin Gaye
Mm.
on the Spotify. I just love Marvin Gaye so much. And yeah, I love like old country music, like Kitty Wells. And you know, yeah, I listen to like all the whatever, the Bob Dylans and the Neil Youngs, and you know, I went through all that certainly. And yeah, I like I don't even know. I like yeah, I went to yeah, I just I don't yeah, I'm not very active. I'm not like an active consumer of
So the record Oh Smokey was originally kind of came out to fans only back in October. You were only selling it at shows, and now it's going to get a national release in May. Was there a reason why you held on to it for that long, or was it, or were you just waiting for a means to distribute this thing?
yeah. I don't all right, I'll try to explain it this way. Right now, there's a kind of I'm working with two people. I have a guy who like a young guy who's doing my digital distribution, and then I got my old friend Josh, who's, you know, like more old school, and he's doing the vinyl. And it's interesting to kind of see the two different uh sort of positions on the industry. Younger people, and I'm inclined to agree with them, realize that there is no, you know what I'm saying? They're really all you just put stuff out digitally and that's and hope you get something to go viral. And then like the older school people are still thinking in terms of like there is an industry and there, you know, you do a proper release, you get like press, you do interviews like that. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, like I'm open for anything, whatever. But yeah, like it's we're at an interesting point right now where it's like both interpretations are I don't valid, I guess, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's no, yeah, there's that's not a good answer to your question. I'm just sort of stumbling my way through it, you know. I don't even know anymore.
So I have to ask you this one last question because I think I noticed that there is a hell of a lot of journey on it too. Tell me about what it is about Journey that you love so much.
A lot of Journey. Well, I don't know. Journey, all right, that's I mean, I do Journey was my first as a musical love back in, you know, fourth grade or something. I was moved by it like everyone else. But no, that the whole Journey thing started actually because of Josh Modell, who's putting out the record, was worked over there at the AV, the Onion, you know, AV Club for years, and they were doing that covers thing. I don't know if you remember. It's like, and so they sent me a list. He's like, "Oh, we want you to do this thing, you know, but here's a list of the songs you get to choose from." You know, they got to choose the song, and so I chose the Journey song, the Faithfully, because that was I don't know, that was my the one that jumped out at me, and then I thought it'd be cool to do it, yeah, to do it like really, you know, on the ukulele, like really small and intimate. Um, and it was there, it went over well. And then Josh actually suggested doing an entire EP, so we ended up doing another 4 or 5 songs in that style. So now they're out there. And yeah, I often get people asking me to play like "Don't Stop Believing" or something. Like, all right, if you really want it, I'll do it. But you know, I have the fan chosen covers series that I started years ago, you know, out of those like Kickstarter campaigns back in the day. And there's, I mean, it's like 4 volumes. Uh, they're all up on Bandcamp, but yeah, we've been releasing some of the best of it as well. And yeah, like I just like it's fun to try and cover songs that are really outside of your, you know, wheelhouse or
Yeah.
whatever. And that's much more exciting to try and cover a Journey song than to cover like a Neil Young song or something, which is like, you know, whatever. Sure.
Well, it does require a little bit more creativity to do, like any way you want it, as opposed to, Southern Man. It's like there is a little bit more
Yeah.
creativity musically, that I suppose.
I know I can't I know there's yeah, like I have I think some people when they want to cover a song they try to like honor the original version or to do it as close to the original or something, you know, certainly if you're some sort of tribute band. But I take the opposite. approach. I think you have to do. You don't dishonor. You almost, yeah. I mean, you dishonor the original version. You start with that kind of sort of blasphemy, and then you're free to go wherever you want with it.
You're going to be at the warehouse in Somerville on April 10th, and also the ConnArtists in Southbury, Connecticut on the 11th. Eve, it's a real pleasure to talk to you. Congratulations on the new record. It is amazing, and it's a real pleasure to talk to you today.
Oh man, thank you so much, Max. Yeah, my pleasure too. Thanks for the support.
Appreciate it, and I'm glad you enjoyed your breakfast.
Yeah, Waffle House.
Waffle House, man. That's all right.
All right.
Thank you, Eve. Good to talk to you.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye now. The name of the new album from Clem Snide is called Oh Smokey, available everywhere on May 2nd. He'll also be at the warehouse in Somerville, Mass. on April 10th, at ConnArtists in Southbury, Connecticut the following night. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you can always email me at bax@rock102.com. I'd love to hear what you think. Thanks again to Metro Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram at Chicopee for their support. But most of all, thanks to you for listening to Baxie's Musical Podcast.